he would have done and did do anything for my mum. He loved her completely. It just breaks my heart to think that they were together for 56 years and now this has happened to my dad. And I know my mum would be appalled. It is just a nightmare.
To their daughter, it was the ultimate act of love. Her father ending the suffering of her terminally ill mother, but which has left him in prison, awaiting trial for her murder.
This is my parents in Cyprus before my mum got ill.
For nearly 20 years, David and Janice Hunter enjoyed a blissful retirement in the Cypriot sun. But Janice had been diagnosed with blood cancer and recently had been in increasing pain.
Speaking to my dad, she was in agony. He'll say now that he still has nightmares where he hears her screaming in pain because she was terminally ill and all she had was over-the-counter medication.
Then, a week before Christmas, Cypriot police were called to the couple's home near Paphos. David had allegedly suffocated Janice before taking an overdose himself. But he survived and has since told Lesley of the pact they made.
They'd agreed that my dad would help her and that then he would take his own life because they wanted to be together, they wanted to go together.
How can you be sure these were your mum's wishes?
Because my dad is a good man and I know how much he loved my mum, and I know without any shadow of doubt that he was doing exactly what she'd wanted and what she'd asked for.
But despite her belief in her father's motives, David was soon taken into custody. He's 74 and has now spent 4 months in the island's main prison, accused of murdering his wife. He calls Lesley every day.
How's your dad doing?
It's a relief when I pick up the phone and it's my dad, and at the same time it's heartbreaking. He's old, he's frail, he's grief-stricken, he's lonely, he's frightened. I just want to bring him home. We need to be able to grieve together for my mum. I want my daddy to come home.
Before his last court hearing, David's lawyers asked the Cypriot authorities to downgrade his murder charge to one of assisting a suicide, which carries a much lower sentence. But that has so far been rejected. The issue of legalising assisted dying is being debated in Cyprus, but it faces strong opposition from its influential Orthodox Church.
There will be people in Cyprus and people here who think what your dad did was wrong and that he should be punished. What do you say to them?
Life isn't black and white. Life is many, many shades of grey. When people are desperate and scared and in pain, they make decisions that you might not agree with, but a little bit of empathy can go a long way. For someone so decent to spend the rest of their days in prison is just a tragedy. So if they could show compassion to a good man and just let him spend the rest of his time with his family, we'd be really grateful.
Janice's grave is in Cyprus, but the man who loved her for more than half a century has not been allowed to visit. If convicted, David will almost certainly die in prison. His daughter is asking the judges to afford him the same kindness she believes he showed his dying wife.
I mean, it's just a desperately sad story, isn't it? What chance do you think is there that Lesley will get what she calls the compassion that she thinks her dad is owed?
Well, David's trial is scheduled to start on June the 16th. It could last several months. In the meantime, Lesley is having to raise money to pay for her dad's legal fees, while, of course, still grieving for her mum. Now, what she's been told is there was a note found at her parents' house. Incredibly, she doesn't know what it says because it's evidence in the case. It hasn't yet been disclosed to the defence team, but clearly its contents could prove crucial in establishing what Janice's wishes were before she died. But that said, euthanasia, assisted dying, they remain illegal in Cyprus, and in some ways this is being seen as a test case. The trial will be heard by 3 judges, not by a jury under the system there, and I think that will make it harder for the family to appeal to that sense of compassion that Lesley is so desperate for.
Yeah. It really is sad, isn't it? Whatever the outcome. Ben Chapman, thank you very much indeed for that.